Welcome to Pulse of Tech by SEAP. Pune's leading technology podcast from SEAP, the city's premier platform for tech organizations, delivering cutting-edge discussions and insights.
Have you ever wondered if you could hack time and have a conversation with any tech pioneer? Who would it be? What would you say? In which time frame? And most importantly, will you survive? Hello everyone, I'm Parijat Sardesai, the technology pillar lead of SEAP and a senior director at Globant. I am your host for this episode and I have been wondering about this for quite some time. But I wouldn't need a time machine today since we'll be talking to Sandip Kamat, who's a global product strategist at HP. And together we are on a mission of decoding the digital horizons and India's opportunity with it. Sandeep has over 20 years of experience in product management and development leadership roles. Sandeep has been a TEDx speaker and has also routinely spoken on technology panels and delivered keynotes in industry conferences. He regularly writes technology explainer articles in a leading newspaper in India, and he was recently interviewed on Doordarshan Sahyadri TV about his career. Welcome to the show, Sandeep. You have been in this industry for more than 2 decades now. So, right from your journey at IIT Madras to being a global product strategist at HB, you have been witnessing the technology landscape evolve, which took a giant leap in the past couple of years. So, how do you see this shift? And what are the most enticing pieces of technology for you right now?
It's great to be here. SEAP, I recently learned about SEAP. So SEAP is doing some great work in the Pune technology community for over 25 years. I was surprised to hear, it's been that long that you guys are working on this space. So thanks for having me on your podcast. Now, coming to your question about, what are the enticing pieces? It's kind of hard for me to answer because this space, technology as a space, has always been really exciting for me, right? From the dot-com boom, towards the end of last century to even after spending 25 years in this space, there is still so much new. I'm still learning. Sometimes I feel like a fresher or, even an imposter sometimes. So things have changed a whole lot. I came to US in the landline era, and now we are talking about smartphones and 4G, 5G. I still remember, in my college days when I used to call my parents, I used to line up at the, STD booth, the landline booths, because after 9 p.m. the rates would go down. And a lot of kids today, they don't know what that means, right? But we have these phones that we can just, with a flick of a button, call somebody on video across the world. So I've seen a lot. And certainly, as you said, there are lots of new technology horizons opening up. The whole, 2 decades of internet technologies and, a lot of these cellular networks, they are bringing us to the horizon of AI and, artificial intelligence and machine learning. And there are all these smart machines around us that are proliferating. It's not only smartphones and computers now. Here in California, we have, autonomous cars driving around us. You sometimes get surprised that there is nobody in that car driving next to you at a signal, and that's just normal for a lot of people now. We have, AR and VR technologies, virtual reality and augmented reality that can take you from the comfort of your home just by wearing that goggle. You can experience moon or Mars. There is also a lot happening in the Web3 or cryptocurrencies or crypto technologies in general, all the way from digital currencies to smart contracts or decentralized exchanges. And there are lots of other verticals, like let's say retail. We have the Amazon Go stores here where there are no associates or no cashiers, right? You just walk in, walk out. There are AI cameras on the wall and in the ceiling that are tracking what's happening in the store. They are basically seeing who picked up what and put in their basket and walked out, and they send you a bill just a few minutes later. So a lot of automation is happening around us. And same thing is happening in other verticals like manufacturing or healthcare. Lots of automation. In fact, Google is working on a research for detecting diseases like diabetes or cancer by retina scans or some of the early, helping the radiologists make sense of those images. there is even extreme sci-fi stuff going on. Like Elon Musk has this company Neuralink, right? I'm sure a lot of your listeners also have read about it, implanting chips in your brain, human brains, that can, help patients walk even if they are paralyzed, or they are able to talk even if they have speech disabilities, right? So there is, astonishing amount of sci-fi stuff happening around us, and it's very difficult for me to pick one. And we are not done yet, right? I could go on and on, but this is super exciting time to be alive, really. Not only as an engineer, but just simply a user or just a human being to witness all of this. And I'm sure a lot of this will continue, and magical experiences, or just improvement of human life in general.
Yeah, I mean, brain computer interface is something which is really like caught a lot of attention these days. Actually,
Yeah.
thanks for those insights, Sandeep. Some are truly changing how humans interact with their surroundings now. Now that makes me even more curious about India's role in all these areas. Where does India stand in all of those?
Yeah, so let's talk about India, right? I feel like I was saying, I feel lucky to have been born in India and saw this entire 2 or 3 decades of, change, not only in India, but also around the world. And compared with the West, India is really unique, right? India actually skipped some of the technology revolutions for the better. For example, a lot of people in India did not ever have landline, but they just jumped to mobile phones or smartphones, right? They did not
Yeah.
have 2G or 2.5G that the rest of the world struggled with. They directly went to 4G and 5G. There is a lot more we can talk about, but India has really made that leap in the last 2 decades. And if I compare like 25 years ago when I came to the US, it felt like we are entering the future. There is so much technology infra. Everybody had desktop and everybody had internet connections, right? But after all these years, when I visit India now, it feels like I'm entering the future, because there is Aadhaar, there is UPI, there is fintech. In many of those areas, India is actually ahead of the world, right? So India is really unique that way. But at this point in history, if you look at over the last few decades or even the century, right, this is really a unique time for India. And there are maybe three, maybe four things that are helping India to, they are really favoring India. So let's talk about those, right? So one is, uh, everyone talks about the demographic dividend that India has. 65% of the population in India is less than 35 years old. That's the biggest youth population concentration anywhere in the world right now. And not only that, these people are skilled. India has a lot of literacy level challenges, but the literate class, a lot of them are actually skilled, technology wise or even IT. The talent has proven its mettle just by being an IT powerhouse, right? So that's one. I would say second one is, over the past decade, India has been fortunately politically stable, right, and has become business friendly, and it's on track to become the world's number three, the third largest technology, I should say, economy GDP wise. And that's something, it's the most economists believe that it's a bright spot in the global economy. Even post pandemic, India remains a bright spot. Let's talk about, the third thing I would say is the geopolitical situation. Now, as we know, beyond the, President Trump was the last president here in the US. And during his time, there was a lot of trade war with China. There was a talk about the trade war. But now it has effectively become a technological war. Like it's a war for dominance for technologies like AI or even semiconductors, because those are going to be crucial for the future. And in fact, Biden administration has, put some export controls on chipsets like NVIDIA, some of the high-end chipsets from exporting to China. So that's the geopolitical situation. And fourth one is, kind of related to that is, and again, speaking of China, there was a lot of manufacturing happening in China over the last maybe 20 years or so after the, open trade agreements. It was almost like world's, factory, right? A lot of the goods and materials were coming out of China. But during the pandemic, China single-handedly locked down a lot of these things. Not a lot of chips could be exported, not a lot of goods could be exported, cars and smartphones, a lot of things got impacted. So the world just woke up that the supply chain needs to be diversified. It cannot be in one place, one country, or one region. And that actually might help India, because India is the other, large economy, large demography, where some of the manufacturing can happen, which can take a lot of human capital. And especially in case of semiconductors, which I hope we can talk more about, right? As AI is demanding a lot of the chipsets. So all of these four factors that I talked about, right, they are helping India in case of foreign investments or international trade or even manufacturing supply chains, like I said. But again, I want to be cautious that it is still early days. There is a lot of new technologies are on the horizon. A lot of countries like UK is competing for AI dominance or AI center of excellence. So it won't be handed to India on a platter. India needs to work hard to get to that, right? And if you, like I said, in the last century, India was not independent for the first half of the century, and they really missed the industrial revolution. But at least India got part of the IT revolution in the last part of the 20th century. In 21st century, India has to go and grab the AI and this particular technology wave and just take it head on and just ask for the fair share of that dominance.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about NVIDIA, I mean, I just heard that now Intel is coming up with their product where they are trying to make a AI computer also,
Yeah,
which
there
is
was
very
an event
specifically.
last week, right?
Exactly. So let's specifically talk about AI. What are the opportunities for India and Indian companies around these areas?
That's an excellent question, right? So we, speaking of AI, it is almost like an overnight success after decades of hard work, right?
Yeah,
It wasn't happening. It appeared like ChatGPT just showed up on the
showed
horizon,
up. Yeah.
but it has been going on for a long time, right? Microsoft and OpenAI is behind ChatGPT, but there are other also players like Google actually launched Gemini last week or last month. Facebook already has their large language model called Llama 2, and the list goes on and on. And as a lot of these are new things, it's a new platform, so to speak, like right after smartphones or internet, really, and might be even bigger than internet as an impact. So a lot of this is early experimentation, right? As an analogy, I would say in 2007, when iPhone launched, it just launched as a hardware device. People did not have apps to go with the smartphones that time. It actually launched a year later. But and actually, I remember Apple ran a lot of TV ads in the US.
Yeah.
It was called "There is an app for that." So you want to book a ticket, you want to go find a map. There is an app for that, right? So it kind of reminds me of that era. Right now, there is a GPT for that. Right? If you want to get something done, there is a GPT for that. So it's almost like a new platform. And just like in the last time, those apps, some of them became really big companies. Facebook, multi-billion-dollar company, Twitter, Uber, and the list can go on and on. This new economy started. So you can expect the same economy to start with AI sort of assistants. We cannot call them apps. These are like more like assistants. And that's a huge opportunity for India. That's the question you asked, right? That's a huge opportunity for India. We have the tech talent, we have the software talent. Um, and we can talk about some examples there too. For example, AI today is trained by the entire internet, right? It is
Yeah.
basically they have taken open AI or other some of these large language models. They have taken internet's content and fed it as a baby learning new things, right? So what that means, there is a huge bias problem, and let me explain that, right? So it's like some of the trainings was done with Western population data. Most of the internet was actually built with early Western references, Western populations. It's mostly in English, right? And that creates some of the bias problems. One example is even elite universities like MIT. I would say 8 or 10 years ago, when they started with the face recognition software with AI, they could only recognize white faces because the whole data was trained with white population. And this was a big case. It was in the news that they were not able to recognize one of their students' faces who was a person of color. Similarly, some of these technologies got started getting used for identifying criminals or stopping crimes. And guess what? Based on the data that the system was trained on, there was a lot of bias against certain communities. So there are these bias problems, and that is also a great opportunity for India to build something around Indian population, Indian languages, right? You can create some of the data, and really that's an opportunity for Indian companies, and I'm sure other companies will try to train these models with Indian data as well, and for the local problem spaces, right? I heard Nandan Nilekani talking about this maybe a couple of weeks ago. It was in the news. He said some statement along the lines of Indian data should be used for training Indian models to focus on Indian problems. And I agree with him, right? The innovation doesn't need to copy the Western apps, make in India, for India, and then take it to, around the world. Some companies in India are doing that. Paytm or Ola are some of the examples here. And if you build for India, which is about 1 billion population, that same applies for Southeast Asia or maybe most of Asia as well. So Indian companies should not be afraid to do that. In fact, even fundamental research, right? There was a debate with Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. He said, sort of challenged the Indian startups, saying you may not get there, but he also said that it is up to the Indian startups to prove him wrong, right? And he's right. I mean, it's time for Indian companies to focus on these problems all the way, from fundamental research to some applications, and go chase that.
Yeah, that's completely true. I mean, when it comes to when you are talking about AI has a potential to boost the performance of many industries, right? In multiples.
Right.
How do you see the Indian software industry adapting the generative AI paradigm and actually evolving with it? How do you see that?
Yeah, so AI, the first incarnation is generative AI or Gen AI, and Gen AI can be helpful in a lot of ways that we know of today. But interestingly, there are a lot more areas that we don't know of where Gen AI could be useful. Some of the use cases we simply don't know because it is so new. But I think initially these technologies will be used for, I would say, human augmentation. There is a lot of talk about human replacement. I don't think that will happen anytime soon. In fact, Facebook's AI chief, Jan Luken, he also is talked about a whole lot about this recently on LinkedIn and other places. That dominance and intelligence are two different things. So initially, AI will be really focused on helping humans, augmenting them, and really, it's imagine aeroplane has been invented just now. We need a lot of pilots, right? That's where we are as an analogy. And one way software companies can benefit from Gen AI is something like GitHub Copilot or Microsoft Copilot, right? So this will make every engineer like a 10x engineer. You basically ask English commands to write a code, and it will generate code for you. Or if you have a code with some bugs or issues, you ask where the problem is, it can pinpoint. So imagine the efficiency that, or the speed or acceleration. With just one engineer, you can achieve a whole lot, right? And in fact, the school kids here, high school kids in the US, my own son is using ChatGPT for his programming for homework. And I asked his teacher in the parent-teacher meeting if he's okay with that. And his answer was he's okay because that's going to happen eventually, as long as the kids understand what the code is doing. And you can always take help. So similarly, companies can benefit by that. You just need to know what's happening. You can take these assistants' help, and Gen AI can help with that. But also it can do much more than writing code, right? It can write maybe legal contracts. It can review your contract or maybe write new contracts. It can, if you're a product manager, it can help you with the current competitive landscape. It can help you with pricing strategies. It can tell you based on your target customer, what is the best way to pitch your product, right? That's a possibility. So we talked a lot about this, technology, but there are other verticals that I mentioned early on, like retail, like healthcare, right? There is India is a huge agriculture-based economy. So India can create basically new inventions just alone in agriculture, right? We have the government is focused on self-reliance or Atmanirbhar Bharat, that can combine the knowledge of weather, soil patterns, or fertilizers, and guide the farmers to really increase their yield. And as I said, there are a lot more possibilities we don't even know of yet. So these are just enough to start with.
Yeah, I mean, these are all, I mean, we are talking about the software possibilities, which are immense. But you earlier also mentioned about the demand of the hardware or the semiconductors, which is growing with the demand for newly evolved chipsets, right? Needed in
Yeah.
this, needed in this era. Uh, do you see India playing a vital role, or do you have opportunities for India opening up in that aspect as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons I mentioned that, right? So global semiconductor market is really is already very big. It's already very healthy. It's growing at a very healthy rate for a long time. And AI, which needs a lot of compute power with GPUs, and as you know, there are like data server farms that are needed. So it's going to be a big boost to that, right? So already chips are everywhere. Chips are like the new oil, right? They are in the phones, computers, they are in cameras, printers, they are in retail kiosks. They are absolutely everywhere. And if I just go by the market size, right, in the next 5 years, the industry is going to be about, I think it's in the range of $800 billion. It's a huge
Oh.
industry, and it's growing at 5% already. So in the next 5 years, 800, and you can imagine how it's going to exponentially grow from there on. And in fact, there are some estimates that 20% of the major economies will be digital economy, which means 20% of your GDP will be run by some sort of silicon. Intel calls it siliconomy, right? It's going to be huge. And India, on the other hand, has been a big consumer, but not a great production base, right? So that's an opportunity for India. There is, Indian manufacturing is still nascent. I know there are programs like Make in India that are impacting, growth of that. But semiconductor is so big that some of the trade deficits that India has could also be bridged. It is that big of an opportunity. So I know rightly government of India has called this strategic sector, and there are lots of, I think, tens of billions of dollars have been earmarked for subsidies and production linked incentives like PLI schemes. They are doing that with Tesla cars as well, like manufactured here in India. I think the same thing. It's already iPhone is getting manufactured there, so it's on the right track. But one thing about semiconductors, it takes a lot of specialized talent. Fortunately, I saw in the summer when India's Prime Minister visited the White House, there were a lot of agreements signed. There were a lot of MOUs signed between India and US. And as a part of that, a lot of these technologies, like Micron is opening a plant in Gujarat, right? It's in the range of $3 billion. AMD is planning to invest. Foxconn has been in the news for expanding their manufacturing to India. But again, it is going to take some time. It's going to be sort of like a long lead. Right now, if you just go by most of the manufacturing of the world happens in Taiwan.
Yeah.
60% of the share goes to one company called TSMC, and they took 20 years to get there. So India needs to be really patient and gather those highly specialized skills. It's a global problem because US is also running into that with the Phoenix plant. It was in the news recently that they also are running short of these specialized skills. So, and in fact, we are talking about SEAP, right? Pune based. So Pune has a lot of potential benefits if this happens because it's a great manufacturing base already. There is a lot of automobile manufacturing happens in Pune. Pune is known for that, right? There are good engineers, good universities around. Of course, great weather, right? And producing chips and foundries needs a lot of water. I believe Pune region has that too. Just naturally blessed. But again, it needs a great, talent and skills. Pune also needs a great airport, international airport, which has been a big problem.
Been a topic of discussion for a long time. Yeah.
Exactly, it has become somewhat of a joke for NRIs like me. Whenever we visit for last 20 years, people confidently tell us that, hey, next time you are here, there will be an international airport, right?
On
And
either
it
side
has
of the
happened.
city.
It has happened for 20 years. So, and hopefully it happens soon. Hopefully some authorities are listening to this podcast. And if you are, please make it happen soon.
Yeah, I mean, everything what you are talking about, I mean, totally relatable and all very intriguing for me, right? And being associated with this industry in both aspects of product development and associated services, I actually want to really understand from you the impact it would have on both these sort of industries, like product development and whatever associated services we provide with product development. What do you see
Yeah.
the impact on these industries?
Yeah, I think there are again lots of possibilities here, right? There is a lot of potential benefit for both products and services. So whether you are a product company or a services company, let's talk about Gen AI as an example, right? So Gen AI can help you make your own products or services better, right? It can, if you're a product company as an example, and if you have a consumer-facing product or let's say an app, right? You can make it multimodal, right? It can, if you have an app that uses text or a touch interface, you can add a voice interface now. You can add a visual, camera-based computer vision interface, and that's simply just by using AI models and these APIs. That's a great opportunity for you to expand your customer base. Bring people who are not tech savvy. They can just speak to the phone or use the camera to communicate. So that's one possibility. And if you're a services company, on the other hand, it is likely that you are already working with one of the global enterprise customers, right, who are working on global problem spaces. And many of these global companies are trying to, get their arms around AI and what Gen AI means. So obviously, you as a services company can help your customers to, grasp that. And just to dive into it a little bit more, there is data integrity problems. There is is the data that you have, is that a good quality data, right?
Yeah.
So that's the data integrity. There is data analytics. There is inferencing engines in specific verticals, right? India is known for a lot of BPO, business process outsourcing, and AI is great to really tell you, process optimization tips. It can tell you what can be automated, what can be made faster or better. So that's sort of like if you're a product or services company. But India is also a huge startup base right now, right? After Silicon Valley, there is a Bangalore region, Noida region, Pune region. A lot of startups are coming. So if you are a startup, you basically could theoretically pick up an area that you have some specialized knowledge in, right, and match that up with these AI models and the right amount of training, and create some purpose built AI assistants, right, to really target. You can be the best in that. It is somewhat similar to apps today, right, but with the help of AI and some of these models. And for all of these, whether you're a product, service, or a startup, Gen AI can potentially help you, diversify your business, right? For example, if you have a good computer vision IP and inferencing AI, you can tell what you are seeing. Then you can diversify from vertical to vertical. For example, you could start from transportation, self-driving, to healthcare, to agriculture, because if you can see and make sense of what you are seeing as a computer while you're driving, you can use the technology for crops, right? In agriculture, you can see what's happening with your crops. Maybe there is some disease or some treatments needed. You can use that same knowledge into healthcare to help the radiologist, right? Already there are, like I said, breakthroughs in diabetes detection or cancer detection much earlier than what humans could find, right? So AI can help you there, and your use cases and markets can grow. And well, lastly, I think India is also known for call centers, customer service, right? Already there are bots. There is a lot more, Indian companies have a lot more data about call centers that really no other country has. So maybe you can take that data, and instead of responding to customer calls, you can preempt them, right? As in, if something is, you see the usage pattern or a call pattern, and then you preempt what's the next call is going to be, and suggest a remedy. That could be a value add for you. You have a lot of data to train on. So tons of possibilities here.
Yeah, I mean, which has already begun, the call center thing, or the or how to train their data on the call center data. I think
Right.
those companies have already started working in that direction. So thanks for that. Lastly, being an industry leader for all these years, right? Do you want to give us some key takeaways or some exciting pieces of technology which we just spoke on? Do you have any key takeaways which you want to talk to the industry leaders about?
So as we said, the technology has changed over 2 decades, but some things haven't changed, right? For example, one thing that hasn't changed is you should always focus on the customer problems. You should always start with the customer problems in mind. Sometimes what happens, and that's a cautionary note for engineers like us, is as engineers and technologists, we sometimes get caught up in excitement of that and want to launch a technology for technology's sake, right?
Yeah.
I think we have to be really, especially when there is so much hype, there will be some mistakes made. Yeah, but really, you have to start with the customer problem, see what are the unmet needs, and is this technology right to solve that, right? And that's how you get the customer excited. For example, again, when Tesla launched its first vehicle, everyone knew that it's good for the environment. It's an electric vehicle, but it was super expensive for most of the
Yeah.
population. So they had to really focus on the high performance segment with Model S, really go after that, make it sustainable, create a business case for that, create some demand. And with that capital, they came down to the passenger cars, right? So that's the approach to make it sustainable. And AI is no different, right? You have to really find the right needs for the
Mhm.
right customer at the right price point, and then you proliferate them into other broader areas. Start somewhere and then you proliferate them. So as a company, understand your own strength. Those are again basics, not a huge invention, but just understand your strengths. Where does this technology help leverage those strengths, and is there a right problem that can actually benefit from this, right? So think customer first, think problems first, technology comes later. And in a lot of ways, you asked about my career. The more you get experience, the more you come back to these basics. These
Yeah.
are just the basics. All in all, there is a huge inflection point in our industry right now, and definitely AI is poised to be, like I said earlier, as big as the printing press of 19th century, or the internet of the 20th century. AI could be that for this century. It's just a lot of economy. We saw internet actually impacted the world global economy so much, especially for India to connect the unconnected, and Aadhaar, and fintech, that has really transformed lives. When I go to Pune and some of the street vendors have these QR codes, that's amazing to me to see, because we used to carry a bunch of change before, and now everybody has digital payments.
Yeah.
So I think things are going to change. We Sometimes I wonder, when I tell my kids that, hey, we graduated before Google or before internet, they just cannot get their minds
Comprehend.
around it. How is that possible, right? How did you guys live without this? And
Yeah.
in fact, they laugh at me when I tell them that finding some one piece of info meant that you go to the library, and first there were lots of index cards. A lot of people don't even know what that means, but there used to be alphabetical index cards. You flip through those to see which floor of that building that particular book is, and then you go to that book, and it's a 1,000-page book. You flip through the pages to find one piece of information, which was a multiple days, or sometimes used to take a week, right? And now they just have a phone, quickly ask Google, and they have the answer. So imagine that, like, in the next couple decades, when their kids will grow up, they'll grow up with AI assistants, right? They won't have to search for info and do it. They'll just get it done. So a lot of exciting times, but just it's easy. It's best to start with the customer problems and then gradually build from there.
Yeah, I mean, been there with everything what you and can relate to everything what you just said. Uh,
Yeah.
First of all, I would want to say thanks to you for your insights. Uh, I would want to say thanks to all our audience. This wraps up the thrilling episode of Pulse of Tech by SEAP. This is our inaugural episode. We hope you enjoyed diving into the tech universe with us today. First of all, a big shout out to our fantastic guest Sandeep today. His insights were like a software update for all of us and our brains. I would only want to say Catch you on the next pulse pounding episode of Pulse of Tech by SEAP. Thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on your inaugural episode. I really enjoyed talking with you, Parijat.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Pulse of Tech by SEAP. Visit seep-pune.org to learn more about SEAP. See you next time.